Hey everyone, welcome back to the video. Today I'm going to be doing my General Mates Valorant roster rebuild. And this video is very interesting because normally with the most of these videos, it's a team that has a set 5 roster that they played with last year, and then they're heading into next year with like 4 or 5 guys, maybe some guys with expiring contracts. But as we'll get into with this video, all 5 players have expiring contracts here, so we can literally do whatever we want with this rebuild. It's pretty much a complete blank slate of a rebuild, which I think is very, very interesting. So if you guys enjoy, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Go check out the other rebuilds in this series. I've done quite a few teams at this point. They're all my recent videos on my channel pretty much. So if you're interested in any of those, please go check those out. And yeah, let's get right into it. So as we do with all these videos, we do have to get into the 2025 recap for this team to kind of go over what they did last year, maybe what their expectations could be for 2026. So this team ascended from challengers in 2024 after beating Apex in that grand final, kind of going on that insane run in the playoffs of that ascension. Did very well there, obviously deserved to come up and were extremely good, but we're not very good in 2024 in VCT at least. Fully rebuilt ahead of 2025. They added Click, Zipon, Mini, and Robbie BK to come in alongside, I think it was Cadavra, who they picked up at the end of 2023 or 2024. They got 7th, 8th at EMEA kickoff with a few decent results. Like I think they almost beat Heretics, which was pretty impressive. And then I think they got maybe 1 or 2 other wins. I don't remember exactly how the overall run went, but they did fine there. They looked fairly promising. But then ahead of stage 1, they removed Robbie BK and picked up Kamek, which was kind of odd to me. I think Kamek obviously is a solid player, and it wasn't necessarily a bad pickup. It was just more of getting rid of Robbie BK, who at the time was their IGL and was at least a decent fragger. Like, everybody was talking about how inconsistent he was game to game. I didn't really see that personally when actually watching him. Obviously, his stats were a little inconsistent, but it wasn't like he was frying. I mean, he did have games where he was frying, but in the other games, like I don't think he was doing anything particularly bad. So he gets removed ahead of stage 1. They go 1-4 and miss playoffs. I mean, you get rid of your IGL, have Mini in there, who Mini did look decent at some points while calling. That's something we'll have to get into with this rebuild, is whether or not we want him IGLing. But then ahead of stage 2, they rebuilt again, pretty much. They kept Kamek, they kept Mini, and then they added Vacaj, Prosh, and Comeback ahead of stage 2. But then they went 0-5 and missed the playoffs with their insane run of losing games once they got to 12, which was hilarious, but also, like, this team could have been quite a bit better at the end of stage 2 if they just kind of fixed those issues of being able to close out games. So our goal for 2026, and I think for most of these teams who aren't super great, like Jesus, like Mates, maybe like a Furia in Americas, like Loud in Americas, you could say EG in Americas, Secret in Pacific, DFM, like teams that haven't been very good, is just to be good enough to maintain a slot in 2027. Obviously, that's not like the entire like basis of what Riot bases it off of for whether or not teams will be coming back in 2027. It's also like what you do with the backing of the org, and Mates seems to be pretty good with that. That's the reason they got this slot over Koi. But also, I think like having good results and building up a good fan base would help this team's case to be a team in 2027. So that'll be a goal for us in this rebuild, is just to build a solid roster. I don't think we have to go for necessarily international events or anything like that, but like to be at least good in EMEA and don't be that like dumpster fire of a team that goes 1-4 or 0-5 in the 2 stages. So as we mentioned before, what we have to work with is 5 expiring contracts. All 5 players will not be with this team in 2026 unless we re-sign them. So we can pretty much remove whoever we want here and bring in any kind of new players that could potentially be upgrades. I will be re-signing Vacaj and Mini, though, because I do think those were easily their 2 best players. Obviously, Comeback was pretty good as well, but I think he'll get opportunities with full Turkish rosters that would be better for him overall. So I'm going to let him walk. I'll let Kamek and Prosh walk because I don't think they were particularly impressive. They were fine. They were solid players, decent support players, especially in the case of Kamek, but nothing that was overly amazing. And I don't think you'd be hard pressed to keep either of them. But Vakash, I thought was very, very solid. Had some rough, nervy moments overall on the scan initiator, and I don't think it was perfect, but was definitely a very good player, showed quite a bit of potential for this team, and I think it'd be good to explore that in 2026, especially with the fact that he's French, and this is a French org, and I mean, Carmine Corps probably won't have any French players, at least from what we've seen from leaks. Obviously, in my rebuild series, I don't know exactly what I'm going to do there yet. I'm still kind of deciding between a few guys for that team, but they don't have any French players right now. So getting a French player on a French org is just a good idea. Also, Vitality doesn't have any French players. I don't know why I completely forgot about that. But also, we will be re-signing Mini, but he will not be IGLing for this team because while I thought he was actually okay at calling, he was an insanely good individual when not calling, to the point where I think we just have to let him off that role and let him just frag out and get a decent, at least fragging IGL in here to kind of get the firepower of this team up and let them just be able to outshoot some teams as like a baseline for them being at least decent. So now we need to get into what we need, which is a duelist player, a flex/scan initiator, depending on what you want Vakash to play. I'm thinking I'm going to switch Vakash over to more of a flex, where he's playing a little bit of like smokes, senti, a little bit of duelist maybe, but also that scan initiator, and get maybe that scan initiator player where they can play scan and they can also play some flash initiator, where if you're playing a double initiator comp, Vakash can play the scan, and then your initiator player can play the flashes. I think that would be the best source or course of action for this team. But then you'll also need a smokes player and an IGL in here. So overall, those will be our needs. And for options for those needs, for duelists, you have Beepo, Camo, who got released from Liquid in this world, Hawks, who played on KC Academy, and Martin, who his contract is expiring with Carmine Corps, and this team signed in real life. For flex players, you have Martin as well. I think he can play that. Drain, Turkish flex player, been a guy that I've liked for a few years. Patty Tech, who also got released from Liquid, and then Sociable, who got released from BBL in this world. Then for controllers, you have DOS9, Shin, who previously is also a French player and has previously played for Carmine Corps. Profek, who got released from BBL in this world as well. And then for IGLs, you have Illuri, Ticey, and Enzo, who have all had good results in Tier 2 for the past few years. So starting with the duelist player we'll be picking up is Beepo. And this guy came on my radar because he was actually signed to Gentlemates in real life, at least reportedly. I don't think it was officially announced at any point, but he's extremely good. Very good agent pool, can play Neon, Raze, Jet, ISO, all very well. Haven't watched a ton of his Yoru, which he hasn't played a ton of either, but I'd imagine it's at least solid. And then he has never really played Waylay in an official game, but I would imagine he can do that as well. I was just really impressed with specifically like him in retakes on Neon is just unbelievable. Like I forget who they were playing against, but he was playing Neon on Lotus, and he was just fucking everywhere in that game. So that was very impressive to me. I really liked him in that game specifically, and his ISO I think is his best agent. Obviously, that's not great to have when ISO isn't like super prevalent in the meta, but if he does, he has that in his pocket. If you want to run a weird comp with an ISO, somebody else plays a double duelist or a second duelist, then that would work as well. I also think Beepo could actually be more of a flex player if he learns like controller and sentinel roles a little bit more, because he has played a bit of flash initiator. I haven't seen a ton of him play it or him playing it, but he did play it. He's played a bunch of KO, a bunch of breach, I think some sky as well. So he could switch over to that even if he doesn't work out on main duelist. So I think overall that is a good like safety net to have for a player like him, where he is very good mechanically. And I think it's just about finding that right role and that right system to play in on the duelist role. Then we will be pairing Beepo with his teammate on Mao's, Iluri, who obviously was teammates with Beepo on Mao's. That is a big thing to have here, that chemistry between your players already established. Obviously, not picking up that full 5, that was a tier 2 team, but picking up a few pieces of it that I thought were good and bringing it up to tier 1 now and mixing it with some already established tier 1 players. So, Illyria has been a guy that he piqued my interest a little bit last year, and like I didn't think he was awesome last year, but he was an IGL. He had some decent fragging moments, and I think I ended up picking him up in one of my rebuilds last year. Didn't get picked up in real life. Kind of understood it. Wasn't like that crazy to me, especially not knowing the IGL stuff behind the scenes. But he definitely improved as an individual this year, and I very much enjoyed watching him. He wasn't like dominant or anything, but he was getting his kills, getting good impact in the mid rounds and stuff like that on the scan initiator. And that's about what you'd want from a scan initiator IGL overall. So I don't really think there's a ton to say about Iluri because I don't really know what he adds in terms of value as an IGL, but he's a decent fragger and he's calling on his team. That's good enough for me to get picked up here in this series. And then our last player here, DOS9, the controller for Boom Esports, who had a kind of weird situation with that team where heading into Ascension, they replaced him with, I believe, Nats, NATZ from, I forget, I think it was RRQ Academy or something, but he replaced DOS9 for their run at Ascension, and they seemingly played maybe a little bit better with DOS9 gone from the team, but I still thought DOS9 was incredible when he played for Boom, and outside of maybe like some communication issues, like if like they were speaking English and maybe like the other Boom players weren't particularly good in English, I don't know, I don't know what it could really be, but DOS9 was incredible for this team, even when the team wasn't playing that well. He's just extremely consistent, like round to round. Doesn't really like overheat, do any like really bad stuff that you could maybe see from some other controller players around the world. And he still gives you those insanely good highlight clutches, clips, like aces, like all that kind of stuff. He gives you all of that stuff while giving you that round to round consistency and the good utility usage and everything like that. So the other thing with him is he's reportedly joining Karming Core in real life, so I believe he should be able to play in EMEA without an import. I saw something about that. I don't know if that's fully accurate or not, but what I do know is he will probably be playing in EMEA next year. So I picked him up for General Mates here because I think he made more sense for this specific team than maybe he did for a few teams in Pacific overall. So our final roster here will be Beepo, Vakash, Iluri, DOS9, and Mini. Now, with this roster, I don't think there's a guy that really stands out. Maybe DOS9 and Mini, depending on how big you are on those two players. But I think you have 5 really solid players, but also 5 players with pretty high ceilings for the whole season. I think there's some low floors in there, like Beepo, Vakash on Flex, DOS9 potentially. You could see that. I could see Mini even falling off a little bit, and Iluri maybe being a really bad fragger and not that great of an IGL. But I think overall, the ceiling of this team is very high, and I think this could be a roster that like maybe surprises a little bit if this was actually a roster that headed into next year, and maybe a roster that would be like ranked maybe 8th to 10th in EMEA, something around that range, but I think could surprise and do very well and prove themselves to be a very solid roster, maybe even a good team as well, heading into 2027, which would, as we talked about at the beginning of this video, help this team's case for staying in VCT and re-upping their partnership agreement in 2027. So let me know what you guys think of this roster in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.